All right. How, excuse me, how is everybody doing today? I'm Thomas. Welcome to my channel. I do educational videos on many different subjects, mostly obscure things you've never heard of before that I think are important that you should know about, or you should at least be exposed to have the option of knowing about. We are uh, in the middle of covering the reciprocal system of theory from Dewey B. Larson, a theory he developed from about 1930 until he died in 1990. And it has been updated also by Dr. Bruce Perret, Dr. K.V.K. Nehru, Dr. Gopi Krishna in the last 30 years. And that's called RS2. So right now we're going through an address. This is just kind of the introduction, just kind of laying down the foundation of the theory. He has an original postulate, and then he deduces a theoretical universe from that initial postulate. I guess there are two postulates. One of them is kind of in dispute. So the other one is the more important one. And he deduces this entire universe and then kind of compares it with the actual universe, or the universe that has been discovered by the legacy scientists. Okay, and so we're going through that right now. We are at statement 95. So we'll start there. You may not be able to pick this up right here at this point. You might have to go back and watch the earlier videos, but possibly you'll get something out of it this way as well. So give it a try, and don't get discouraged if you don't get it. This is just laying the foundation. We'll get into more of the specifics later, and you know. This is just really kind of laying the groundwork, getting a feel for kind of how Larson is thinking and how the nuts and bolts of the theory. Okay, number 95. In order to change the spatial position of an atom or an aggregate of atoms, an outward motion must be applied against the inward scalar motion of the atom. That inherent inward motion then acts as a resistance that can be that inherent inward motion then acts as a resistance to the applied outward motion. In this capacity as a resistance or inertia, the mass acts as the inverse of a three-dimensional speed with the dimensions t to the third power over s to the third power, or time to the third power over space to the third power. In practice, gravitation is measured in terms of force, a derivative of inertia, rather than in terms of speed. Both the gravitational and inertial relations are therefore expressed in terms of the time to the third power over space to the third power magnitudes. This explains why measurements of the gravitational mass and the inertial mass arrive at the same results. Just to go back, I didn't really introduce Larson's postulate. The universe is made out of motion, not matter, not energy, but motion. And motion is the relationship between space and time. And space and time have all the same qualities, but they are reciprocals of each other. So motion is a relationship between space and time. All of our scientific quantities that we know of, the things that have units, they are all expressible in terms of space and time. So here he's really saying that inertia and gravitation are both expressed in terms of the time to the third power over space to the third power. And that's in Larson's theory. Time and space are both multidimensional. We know that time has multi-dimensions, three, most usually three, and Therefore, time also, because they have the same qualities. The thing that we know about time is that it's always progressing. It's always getting later and later and later. And so too, space has that quality, which we can see in the recession of the distant galaxies. Everything is always moving farther and farther and farther apart. Okay, number 96. Having established the space-time dimensions of mass, we can now define the dimensions of the other physical quantities of the mechanical system. The product of mass and speed, momentum, is time to the third power over space to the third power times speed, space over time. That equals time to the second power over space to the second power. So that is momentum. The product of mass and the second power of speed is energy. That is t to the third power times space to the third power, or t to the third power over space to the third power times space to the second power over time to the second power. That equals time over space. That's energy. Energy is time over space. Acceleration, the time rate of change of speed, is space over time times 1 over time, or per time. And that equals space over time to the second power. Force, the product of mass and acceleration, is time to the third power over space to the third power times space over time to the second power, equals time over space to the second power. Okay, so he just defined, four qualities there of, or four, units, four different fundamental, quantities of our scientific, theory in terms of space and time. Momentum is time to the second power over space to the second power. Energy is time over space. Acceleration is space over time to the second power. And force is time over space to the second power. Number 97, physical phenomena with the same dimensions have the same general status in physical interactions and are interchangeable. For example, all phenomena with the dimensions time over space are equivalent to energy and can be converted to kinetic energy by appropriate processes. Okay, here we have finished the section B of this talk, and this must have been a very long talk. People must have been dozing off during this talk if they weren't able to follow, because this must have taken hours. I believe this is my I think this is my 11th video just on this one talk here. So anyway, section C. In this section, we examine the application of the general physical principles developed in section A to the basic phenomena of another physical field. The field selected for examination in section B was chosen to show how the quantitative relations emerge easily and naturally from the mainly qualitative general principles and relations. Now, in this third section, we demonstrate the ability of the theory of the universe of motion to clarify the theoretical relations in a field that has heretofore been subject to much confusion. As in the preceding sections, each statement is a deduction from the postulates of the theory, or one or more of the numbered statements earlier in the outline. Number 98, the only difference between the effective component of the electron, which is m0-0-1, and the rotational base, which is m 0-0-0 is 1 unit of rotational space displacement. It is therefore a rotational combination with the dimensions of space. The term electron, as used in this outline, refers to the particle defined in statement 70. Similar particles carrying charges will be identified as charged electrons. So again, in Larson's system, he has the electron defined in 70 is the uncharged electron. Similar particles carrying charges will be identified as charged electrons. Number 99, as noted in statement 97, different physical phenomena with the same space-time dimensions have the same status in physical interactions. From the general physical standpoint, the electron is therefore equivalent to a unit of what we may call extension space, the space of our ordinary experience. The idea of the equivalent of ordinary space is new to science and may be conceptually difficult for some scientists, but it is the same kind of a concept as the idea of the equivalent of ordinary kinetic energy that we have all become accustomed to. For example, if we wish to put a rocket into orbit, what we have to do is accelerate it to a certain speed. That is, give it a certain amount of kinetic energy. But in addition, we must provide enough fuel energy to compensate for the difference in the energy of position, the potential energy, and lift the rocket against the Earth's gravity. This potential energy is not kinetic energy, but it is energy. And in relations involving energy in general, it is the equivalent of kinetic energy. Similarly, electron space is not extension space, but it is space. And in relations involving space in general, it is the equivalent of extension space. Okay, number 100. From statement 67, the net speed displacement of the atoms of ordinary matter is positive. That is, in terms of effective units, there is an excess of time over space. The electron can therefore move through matter as the relation of space, or electrons, to time, or matter, constitutes motion. According to the postulates of the theory of the universe of motion, it cannot move through space. Space cannot move through space. Relative to the natural reference system, as the relation of space, in this case electrons, to extension space does not constitute motion. It's a pretty key concept for him. The relationship of space to space does not constitute motion, and the relationship of time to time also does not constitute motion. But the relationship of space to time, or time to space, does constitute motion. Okay, number 101. We identify the movement of electrons through matter as current electricity. It should be noted that the current moves through the matter, not through the spaces between the atoms, as has been assumed, but the current moves through matter. Matter is made out of time, and so the electron is made out of space through matter. So it doesn't move through the spaces between the atoms, but through the atoms themselves. Number 102, the movement of space, or electrons, through matter is identical, except in scalar direction, with the movement of matter through extension space. Just like if we were, launched through space, that is the identical analogy. Thus, quantities involved in these motions and the relations between them are thus the same in both cases. We may characterize the relations involved in the movement of space through matter as the mechanical aspects of electricity. Since the scalar direction of gravitation, a movement of matter through space, is inward, it follows that the scalar direction of current electricity is outward. Number 104, the electrons or effective dimensions S, space, are units of electric quantity, which he labels as Q. The rate at which the electrons move through matter, the quantity per unit time, is the electric current, labeled I, capital I, with dimensions S over T, equivalent to those of speed. Electrical force or voltage, which is a capital V, has the general force dimensions time over space to the second power. Okay, so that is a force. The product of voltage and current is power, or P, with the dimensions time over space to the second power times space over time. So that equals 1 over S. So the product of voltage and current is power. Power has the units of 1 over S. The product of power and time is electrical energy or work, W. The dimensions are 1 over S times T equals T over S, which are the units of energy or work. The mass taking part in the current flow is not a constant quantity, but depends on the duration of the current. The mass per unit time, dimensions T to the third power over S to the third power, times 1 over T equals T to the second power over space to the third power, is therefore a significant quantity in current electricity. We identify it as resistance, or R. To demonstrate the identity of the electric current relations, motion of space through matter, with those of the mechanical system, motion of matter through space, we may compare the energy equations. Kinetic energy is 1/2 mv squared, mass times velocity squared. Space-time dimensions are t to the third power times t to the third power over s to the third power times s to the second power over t to the second power, which equals t over s. Electrical energy is RT, I guess R is a resistance, T times I to the second power, which is I is the, I thought it was the current. I is the current. The dimensions, so there are time to the second power over space to the third power times time times space to the second power over time to the second power, which equals time over s, t over s. Another mechanical expression for energy is force times distance, Fd, which equals time over space to the second power times space equals time over space. The analogous electrical expression is voltage times electrical quantity. So that's VQ, which equals time over space to the second power times space equals time over space. In both cases, the equations are identical, except for the terminology. Okay, this will be the last one, 106. Since they are phenomena of the same kind, the flow of electrons through a conductor is analogous to the flow of gas molecules through a pipeline. A constant force or voltage differential causes a steady flow of current. This agrees with the observation. Existing theory ascribes the flow to a difference in electrostatic potential, which it does not distinguish from voltage. But such a potential difference applied to the charged electron, which is assumed to be the moving entity, would result in an accelerated motion. Present-day science has no explanation for this phenomena or for this contradiction. Okay, that's the end of number 106, and that's about where we are for today. Probably another handful of these presentations before we get to the end. I think it goes up to like number 165 or something. So, okay, we'll just keep with it. I know this is difficult stuff, but this is a review. This is stuff that once we learn the reciprocal system, we'll have this in the bank and we'll be able to refer back to it. Just laying down the foundation, but I also want to show you the way Larson thinks and the process that he goes through to get to his universe. He's not just making stuff up. He's using the same principles every time, but sometimes that's hard to see. Okay, have a great day. We'll see you next time.